So I'll request Kalyan to come on stage and introduce our panelists for the upcoming infrastructure panel discussion. Kalyan is currently the Director of Business Development, Bentley Systems. He has nearly 25 years of combined experience in managing construction projects and enterprise software development, has won many awards and has published widely. Prior to Bentley, he was the co-founder and CEO of Nadhi Information Technologies Private Limited, an IIT Madras Research Park incubated company that was recently acquired by Bentley. He won the 2015 Technologist Innovator Award from the Construction Industry Development Council, Government of India. Earlier, he was named Entrepreneur of the Year 2014 by CII Chennai. Recently, he also co-authored a book, a chapter on cloud-based collaboration and project management in Construction 4.0 book. He holds an MS in Structural Engineering from Cornell University and is a Governance Gold Medalist with a BTech in Civil Engineering from IIT Madras. With a big applause, please welcome Kalyan Vaidyanathan on stage.
Good morning, all of you. So we already have our first panelist on stage. He's already been introduced. Thank you, sir, for that very enlightening and energizing information on India's infrastructure. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on the other panelists. Ms. Geetha Priya. She has she's the Senior Director and Sector Head with Project Development Services with Infrastructure and Airports with JLL India. She has nearly 20 years of experience in the airport sector, having worked with both the owner-operator side with BIAL, the contractor side with L&T, and now with GC with JLL. So I'm hoping you'll bring a perspective to us. Mr. Kiran Shah. He's the Chairman and Managing Director of YelloSKYE, which does spatial imagery that uses drone-based information to kind of do project monitoring and control. Welcome, sir. Mr. Kasturi Srinivas. He's a Senior Director at Bentley Systems, who's handling a lot of both domestic and international accounts, well-recognized expert with more than 25 years of experience in linear infrastructure in road and rail. Welcome, Kasturi, sir. And of course, Mr. Vaibhav Dange, who's already been introduced. So, maybe I'll just stand here. I'm going to just kick off the discussion with a couple of questions, and hopefully all of you can debate with each other. So we have policymakers, we have end users in form of owner-operators / contractor, and we also have technology providers. So there's a good mix, and I'm hoping we can get some discussion and debate going. I think I was going to talk about the investments that India is doing in infrastructure, but I think I'm going to cut it short because I think enough has been said about that. So I'm going to start by just asking, maybe I'll start at the other end, Kasturi, sir. What are the emerging trends that you're seeing that is sort of seeing early adoption and traction in technology, particularly with the infrastructure? So again, we're just really focusing on the infrastructure here, and I'm defining infrastructure as linear infra, road, rail, metro, water, utilities, airports, that segment. Kasturi, sir.
So thanks, Kalyan. If we can step back about 20 years back, we probably started with a 2D, kind of mimicking what's a manual process. And we kind of moved into, in early 2000s or around 2000s, we moved into 3D and things like that, right? 2.5D and 3D. And around 2010s, we kind of moved into BIM, kind of get more acceptability and things like that. And BIM also kind of remained mostly into design phase and kind of moved into a construction phase in a way where mostly with class detection and things like that. And I think, what's going to happen, or rather what's actually happening is the technology was more moving towards what we call a digital twins. Digital twin is something that's not very new as such. It's very old in the aircraft industry and manufacturing and things like that. I think in the infrastructure industry, we expect to see a lot of disruption, especially in this area, where BIM, we basically build upon BIM and taking that in construction and take that as built into an O&M, and that's the kind of thing which is basically, it's basically covers entire life cycle of any infrastructure project. That's what I think, digital twin actually is going to go in that direction. As a technology provider, we know that, the project delivery is quite complex. For example, say for example, Metro as a project, for example. So you have many disciplines of engineering, needed, like for example, structure, station, geotechnical, many electrical signaling, many types of engineering you really need to deploy to make it work or to build and things like that, to operate, things like that. So what happens is that obviously there are very many technologies available to design these niche areas. Then obviously what we really need is that we need to bring all those people together so that, like for example, the professor earlier talked about concurrently working together, which means that you should have the ability to read across different technologies, and we need some kind of open technology, something which we can easily understand, process it almost instantly, as if when the coordination meeting is actually happening, all the disciplines of the field can work together and then perhaps come up with very quick decisions, look at the impact of the what's the design being conceived in construction, things like that. So we thought obviously Bentley cannot solve all problems together. So we kind of built an open platform which we call an iTwin platform, which primarily works as vendor agnostic, trying to solve the complete project delivery aspect. Like for example, like I said, just the collaboration, things like that. At the same time, bringing the aspects of linking the project management, like for example, the complete project control aspects into the BIM models, and that's something which we have really built upon quite a lot, and we have a lot of examples in India being implemented as I speak. So again, this digital twin as a platform is something which is getting expanded into as built again, taking them into a O&M phase. Then a lot of other information obviously gets built into it. For example, as you know, geography keeps changing. You have a new kind of data keeps coming in. The IoT sensors, giving you a lot of the information. The maintenance management systems also will give you a little other information in terms of maintenance. So we are actually built up an open platform to bring all of these together as if you're working in a single pane of glass. That's something which we have been working on it, and there have been some very good examples. So, and to build on top of this, what we realized is that, of course, we build an open platform, so we said, look, we need to have an open eco data systems, which means that very large infrastructure projects, you require a lot of geographical context is very much needed, which means that you have a huge 3D models to be managed, huge GIS information to be managed, subsurface information to be managed together, which means that you need to have a system where you are able to stream all this information very fast, optimally in a cloud environment. So for example, we now cesium, I don't know if anybody's familiar, it's become part of Bentley now. We're going to spend more and more time making more and more open so that we have people can build applications on top of the same technology so that, this particular thing basically, takes further. Again, we're working a lot on the AI as well in terms of in the construction monitoring. We have a lot of tools, especially in the maintenance as well. So I think, some of those areas that I'll just,
sure.
I'll just highlight it, yeah.
Cool, thank you. As an end user, what are you seeing, Geetha ma'am, as emerging trends in the technology sector? and one of the stakeholders in the play.
Good morning, everyone. Infrastructure sector has definitely seen a lot of significant advancements because of technology adaptation in construction. Specific to airports, I would like to highlight 3 emerging technologies that has already made a significant impact. Kasturi already captured, BIM has proven to be a very efficient tool. Why? Because BIM creates a very detailed 3D modeling that is enabled for clash detection and analysis, especially in a highly complex large-scale infrastructure such as an airport. So it enables for clash detection and analysis between various disciplines for architects, engineers, even prior to construction. So BIM undoubtedly has given results. Another catching technology, at least in India airports, has been digital twin. Digital replica of existing infrastructure asset has enabled predictive operational and maintenance life cycle, over the life cycle. So we have seen significant impact there as well. Prefabrication and modular construction has also proven results. Because a lot of construction components get built outside the site, there is pretty much good quality control, and also it expedites faster construction timelines and also gives data accuracy. There are a couple more trends which are catching up, which could be having significant impact over time. 3D printing, again, it gives a lot of flexibility in designing, saves construction timelines, and also gives more data accuracy. So 3D printing is one of the technology which could definitely have an impact. Another could be robotics. Some of the global airports have already started using this technology where labor-intensive tasks are being minimized with the use of robotics.
Thank you for that. So your thoughts on emerging trends, Vaibhav sir, on your on the infrastructure sector. That's fine. That one is.
Broadly, as I said in my earlier statement, the asset management and asset, any kind of technologies, so whether it is BIM, whether it is, any kind of asset management and maintenance technology is definitely going to make a, all kind of, so different people will come up with the different solutions, but asset management, so for example, in highway, somebody earlier came with a LiDAR, now it has been added along with the, drone shootings, so many. The technology will keep on evolving, but primarily asset management and maintenance is one area where there is a tremendous amount of growth, and any solutions, particularly in reducing the human interference in data collection of the asset management or the infrastructure. Because that is one area which is still largely in our country is driven by the humans' intervention. And that makes a lot of impact on the quality of data and the, all those aspects. So that's one area. Another area I see, as I said, in, for example, in the construction of infrastructure, as she has mentioned, is the precast or prefabrication of various, modular things for the construction. So, for example, I'll share you an example. We have brought in a technology from Malaysia, which was being adopted in Malaysia, so that's why I'm saying from Malaysia. It's an ultra-high performance concrete being used to precast girders, which are used in bridges and, so other places in the factory. And there are now, I think, 5-6 factories that are being set up all across India, all corners of India. So what it does is, one, as quality improves drastically. 2, instead of steel bars, they are using steel fiber. So the weight of the precast has gone down drastically. The girder has gone down drastically. And because weight has gone down, the load on the, superstructure, substructure, everything is categorically, accordingly has come down. And it has helped expand the span of the bridges. So for example, today, with this technology, we are able to go to 100-meter span, which was never expected. For example, metro in urban centers. Most of the urban transport metro piling is done at 20 meter, 30 meter, 40 meter. If we are able to bring it to even 80 meters or 70 meter, our urban space will be better utilized. so our capacity of urban infrastructure expands. It reduces the construction time, it improves the quality. So similar kind of technologies which will help reduce the construction time, which will improve the quality of construction, overall look and feel of the infrastructure, because that is also going to play a very important role in urban infrastructure. You know, most of us, when we go to Western countries, we normally, say that quality of infrastructure is much better in terms of look and feel. You know, those kind of improvements will be required. The consumers, users will demand those kind of improvements in coming days. So those kind of technologies, and technologies like, for example, in airports, for example, technologies that will improve the efficiency of ground handling, baggage handling. So for example, simple technology like RFID for baggage handling, for end-to-end user. So for example, user can track his bag anywhere. These days with IoT, apps, everything is possible. For example, those technologies are being used in logistics. Those technologies are being used for the, your warehousing, or retail for that matter. Those kind of technologies adopted in infrastructure, particularly at the consumer experience level, could be another area which will drive the growth in next few years. And as I said, alternative mobility solutions. These are few areas which I see will drive the growth.
So Kiran, your thoughts on this?
My co-founder Kush is going to spend some time going deeper into YelloSKYE, so I'll keep it very brief. We are essentially a solution provider for a lot of the things that the rest of the panels has spoken about. We are basically a reality capture company, and we own everything end to end, and we provide services for any stage of your asset. We have spoken so much about maintenance on your individual talk as well as now. We started that about 9 months or a year ago, and whether it's roads, whether it's rooftops, whether it's the metro, any asset that you have, whether it's a vertical asset like a chimney or a horizontal asset like a chemical plant that we just did, we can provide maintenance information for any asset that we have. So we do it end to end through the life cycle, right from the acquisition of your land to the monitoring of the construction, the selling of your asset. We do 3D models, we do BIM, we do clash detections. We also do, as I said, maintenance and inspection after you have completed the asset. So that's YelloSKYE in brief. As I said, Kush in a later session is going to, my co-founder Kush in a later session is going to deep dive. You all will get to know what we do a lot more. I think everything that I'm going to say has been covered quite a bit. We have seen very clear-cut ROIs with respect to adoption of technology that has been mentioned. What we have tried to do, and we have succeeded, I'm going to go ahead and say we succeeded because we've been doing it for 2.5 years, and we're growing at an exponential rate now, is the fact that the leadership, the middle management at the site, as well as in the office, are now using our technology with respect to everything that we've spoken about, whether it's for clash detection, whether it's just checking the monitoring of the construction. We've done airports, we've done warehousing and logistics, we have done small 2-acre assets, so again, it doesn't matter what the asset is. I think the key, what we realized about 1.5, 2 years ago, that just a visual is not enough. A lot of people can do a visual. It's not very difficult, whether it's a drone or whether it's a handheld or a LiDAR sensor. Everybody can do that, but we transformed into a very deep engineering and analytics company. So it's effectively data plus analytics is what a client ends up paying for, and that is where the real value is. So it's not easy, but most probably the uniqueness comes from the technology and the platform and the ease to use the data. That has been our view, because if it is cumbersome to use data and technology, everything that the panel said and what was said before, and I'm quite sure a lot more is going to be said later in the day, is very, very difficult. We are living in a very different world today compared to even 5 years ago, forget 10 and 15 years ago with respect to attention span and technology. So the way we think at least is you have to make it very intuitive, very easy to use, that's part of the solution, in addition to the analytics and the engineering capability that I said that needs to be developed on the technology side of giving the solutions to the industry.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm now going to go to the other extreme of the technology and say, in technology we say, all of us talk about, I'm sure a lot of us have been to many of these conferences, we talk of these what I call as one-off use cases. I've done this one project with this great technology adoption, whether I built a digital twin, whether I built an IoT solution or something. But there's always what I call as crossing the chasm, right? So you want the late adopters, you want everybody to adopt technology. So what are you seeing as mature technologies, if you will, that people don't question anymore and just take it up? For what it's worth. So I'm going to start at your end. And
My favorite topic, adoption.
Yeah, and I'll kick it off by saying, I started my career as a structural engineer, drawing on vellum and doing ammonia prints and things like that. I'm sure young engineers here must be rolling their eyes thinking, what's this guy talking about, right? So from that to, we're talking digital twins and BIM and clash detection. So I'm going to kick it off by saying, what's the technologies that have crossed the chasm that you don't need to justify and prove to policymakers, end users, stakeholders?
So, I think if you ask me, I'll talk about both the adoption, as you said, both as you said, what has gone well and going well, and what potentially we could do more. I'm going to talk about the challenges also. But I think what has gone well and what has been adopted is the levels of transparency that risk owners in the asset now get to see. As I said earlier, it starts with the visual. Whichever way you cut it, a picture will say 1,000 words. You can make PPTs and you can write 4-page reports, but if you can show a visual of what's going on at your asset, at your construction site, whether it's a road or a building or residential company, whatever your building, doesn't matter. It's very, very powerful. And more and more people, whether you take the public sector or the government or you take a private side, I think they have all adopted that. Second, I think if you get to the acquisition of the land, which is potentially the most expensive part of any construction or asset that you want to build, again, doesn't matter what it is. I think the adoption of technology is about, I would say, only 50-60% there. They're still using very, very traditional methods of boundary markings to, just getting the contours of the land, whereas there are way more advanced technologies to do that quicker, faster, and more accurate. We are seeing the adoption pace increase in the last 2-3 years, but you yourself mentioned about it. It is difficult. It's not easy. Somebody for 10-15 years who's been using a B3 or a B4, I don't know what the number is, but a large size paper on which they are doing their design and drawing, and then suddenly asking them to use a computer or a phone, and they've never potentially used it for this in their life. I think everybody would have used phones and computers in their life. It's not easy, but we are definitely seeing the change happening. I think on the analytics of the monitoring of the construction, it's a bit slower. And on maintenance, I do agree with Vaibhavji that is most probably the least. People are still having somebody walk around and look at roads, even in a small area of say 4 or 5 kilometers, why would you do that? If you can actually get a visual of it with analytics, there are 30 people who can log in and see the same data. So that is very powerful. I think what is working is that the minute there is a international partner, let me just call it that. It could be a joint venture partner where there's an investment. It could be a partner who's helping the design with respect to the build out, whether it's pre-starting or even while the construction is going on. We do see the adoption that much more faster, to be fair. No offense to any of the local or Indian sort of stakeholders, developer, designer, architect, whatever the case may be. But we are beginning to see more. We've had an example just last week where it's about 120-acre water park, hotel, etc., being built in Goa, and we were on the call with a water park consultant from the US, a architect from Thailand. Obviously, there were 5 to 7 people from India who were owning the project, and the person who was building it out was also there. The CEO himself was also there. And there were a lot of questions with respect to the design, but the fact that you had one single source of truth is very, very powerful to solve everything under the sun.
Vaibhavji, your mature technologies.
If I may allowed, instead of saying which technology will get acceptable, I would in a way say what are the challenges in adaptation of technology, any technology, new technology that comes, particularly in infrastructure, because as I said, infrastructure is largely driven by the government agencies, because it's a public infrastructure. I am not talking about the construction part of it, the building construction part of it, but largely the public transport infrastructure, you may call it. On a lighter note, I'll share you two experiences. So we were trying to push contractors, designers, consultants to bring in new technologies. But it's ultimately all linked to the bills you get at the end of the day. You have to raise the bill and you have to get the revenue. So in government contracts, you have to live, it's almost like a Bible. You have to go by the contract. And so we were trying to deep dive why people are not adopting new technologies, and contracts were one of the primary reasons why people were hesitant. So we created a national technology kind of a committee which used to, and we said to the contractors that if you want to adopt some new technology in construction, materials, whatever, this committee can approve, and if the committee approves, you can use that technology, and if you are able to save the resources, that's your incentive. But if you spend more to stabilize the technology, government cannot pay you more. And people started using some or other new technologies at different levels, as you said. But one fine day, one secretary in one of the department in Government of India issued a circular saying that if you save the money by using new technology, you have to pay back. And if you don't save, I will not pay you back. So please don't use technologies where you will save money. So, funny as it sounds, but, and I went to that secretary saying, why did you, mention like this? And he said, boss, in the contract, as per the, principles of bidding, I have to give a common conditions to everybody. So if I could have allowed that technology beforehand, everybody else could have probably reduced the cost. So he had his own logic. I'm not arguing whether that logic is right or wrong. So I think, as I said, even at the cost of repeating, I think adaptation of technology will have to be driven by the academia and the institutes like IISc, IITs, IIMs. Why I'm saying this, for example, most of the technologies I have seen in last 10 years, which were made acceptable in the country, were ultimately validated by some of these institutes. So if they can drive that, acceptability level to the technology, not about X technology or Y technology. For example, beam, now it has become more of a generic technology. Somebody will use some way to do it, somebody will use some other way to do it. Plus, another aspect I think in adaptation, fast adaptation, is the cost reduction. Ultimately, if it monetarily benefits the agencies, whether it is government agencies or the contractor, the adaptation is going to be very, very fast. So please don't focus on technology that will not reduce the cost. I am telling you, it could be a good rocket science, space science, don't use it, don't waste your time if it is not reducing the cost. Focus on reducing the cost, time. Reducing in time of delivery also is a monetary benefit to the user. So I think reduction in cost is something which will ultimately drive technologies to be stabilized and adopted very fast. And as I said, academia needs to kind of play a very important role in generalizing this acceptability of technology by regularly kind of patronizing those technology, validating those technology, also educating and motivating decision makers to adopt large scale technology. And again on the lighter note, or we'll have to create buzzwords like AI. So today you can say AI and probably
Any technology.
जैसे हम दिल्ली की भाषा में कहते हैं, आप AI बोलो और कुछ भी चिपका दो, लोग accept कर लेते. So either we'll have to create buzzwords like that, but jokes apart, but I think the best way to increase the adaptation of technology is for academia to play a very important, very proactive role. Unfortunately, I have not seen academia playing role in making sure that technologies are accepted. What they are at the most is looking at is getting a consultancy for validating a technology. Nothing more than that.
Got it. Geetha ma'am, thoughts?
Yes. I would like to continue with Mr. Vaibhav here. I also agree to look at the outcome, depending on the challenge in the infrastructure sector today in India, and then drive and adapt those technologies. For example, we have seen the outcome of BIM. So we may look at mandating the use of BIM across all projects. We are already seeing a lot of RFPs which insist on use of BIM. And we can look at mandating those kind of technologies which has already proven results in the sector. And again, it's very specific to the sector and airports for sure. And I've heard from Sir also on infrastructure, other areas like railways and roadways. Mandating sustainable practices and also ensuring green certifications for these construction projects could also be a mandate which can be looked at, because Western world has already implemented it. India is in a very fast and rapid development phase as far as infrastructure is concerned. And if we don't mandate sustainability, we have already missed it. It would be too late. So I would say mandating both result-oriented technologies and sustainability would be one of the key aspects to consider. There is a cultural resistance to adapt technology. At least in India, infrastructure sector, specifically construction, is very labor intensive, and there is a lot of resistance to replace man-force with technologies for automation and robotics. How we can handle is by doing awareness campaigns to prove the efficiency, safety, and sustainable benefits that can come out of adopting these technologies, and to ensure that the man-force are not to be replaced, because we do need the man intervention in utilizing these technologies. And also change management. Change management cannot happen at on-ground level. It has to happen to give training to the leadership to drive cultural acceptance of technology adoption. Sure. So these are some of the two key aspects. Today, what we can focus to take the next baby steps for adapting technology at a large scale.
Kasturi sir.
I probably will quote one example where we have a fairly good success story. Like, for example, as I said earlier, you have 3D models and BIM models and things like that. As like Sir very rightly said, end of the day, the contractor has to build, and end of the day. So I think this particular case study, I can definitely talk about Delhi Metro Phase 4. We worked very closely with the DMRC. What we did was that we brought all the project control aspects and linking back to your BIM models. The major advantage was that the data, the construction progress, which is being captured on a specific day, is not massaged as the data goes up the chain, which means that you have a greater confidence that how the project is actually progressing. Is it really progressing? Is there a lack of progress? And things like that. So which means that we have seen, and there are one more example which I can quote, the Steel Authority of India kind of expanded into what they call integrated project control systems, where they're actually they're building new plants essentially with this approach, marrying the BIM and the project management together. They see a lot of benefits, especially in delivering the projects more efficiently and faster and things like that. And I think that's probably one thing I want to mention. Of course, Sir talked about asset management. Again, I've got a transportation road background, so we kind of built for Odisha Works Department, we built an asset management system way back, 6-7 years back, which is really functioning well, and we're trying to improve. Furthermore, we're trying to bring in more efficient bridge monitoring. Like, for example, someone like YelloSKYE talking about drones. So you can actually use drones to model and come up with 3D models to do the visual inspections, basically. I also work with a lot of multinational consultants. They work in Bangalore, and they sit in Bangalore. They actually visually inspect bridges somewhere outside the country to look at what's the measurement of cracks and things like that, basically. Apart from that, and like Seth also talked about the sensors. In fact, in India, we have a lot of brilliant startups are available researching on the sensors, basically. So we developed a sensor bridge monitoring system where you can actually bring these 3D models and the sensor information all assimilated together with historical information so that you can actually monitor the bridges, very efficiently, effectively. Again, he also talked about earlier about inserting sensors while the construction is actually happening. That's also an important aspect. The third one, I think, there is a very good adoption. Maybe it should, I'm sure it'll come here as well. See, like in India also, we have a lot of public works departments don't have the inventory. Okay, if you don't have inventory, then how do you actually collect the condition information, validate, and compare it back to the inventory? So, especially in the road domain, we are working with several devotees. We actually use the Uber drivers to take the video feed and trying to use AI to build the inventory, which gives you an effective map layers, GIS layers, basically. And not only that, you're able to measure the rutting, raveling, potholes, edge breaks, and things like that, which is quite a very, very interesting thing. I'm sure it'll come this side as well. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I forgot partly that somebody said something and it collected. 10 seconds. I won't take more than that.
Okay.
I think the adoption piece is, so for example, all our data, your charts, your 3D BIM models, it took us 9 months. It's on a mobile piece. And it was on account of an adoption strategy that we started creating.
Oh, wow.
So what I tell even our clients, by the way, okay, is that it is a challenge. Accept it as a challenge. You're working in a large organization. Senior leadership, of course, you need the sponsorship, but they're not doing the work.
Okay.
No offense to senior leadership. But there's tons of people doing the work at the site and in your office and obviously at your client's places if it's a client you're doing it for. So have an adoption strategy for whether it is prefab, whether it is software, whether it's a platform, whatever it is. Technology comes in various forms, right? But I'll repeat it for the third time. Have an adoption strategy and execute on it, obviously.
For the people on the ground. Got it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
everybody.
So 30-second responses. As a person who's been an owner, operator, contractor, and maybe a GC, what is the one thing you would like to tell the audience here, largely with construction tech firms, maybe some academicians and some end users? What's the one takeaway you can give them?
One takeaway?
No, from Geetha, ma'am. Yeah.
Thanks, Kalyan. Yes, I've had multiple experiences with an airport operator, now with a PMC. It's a property consulting firm and a contractor. I have seen the evolution of airports, I would say. Like Mr. Vaibhav had mentioned, only in the past decade, India has seen this rapid growth, which no other country has seen ever. And technology adoption is not an option. It is the only solution that we have on table. When I started my career back in 2008, there was very, very minimal knowledge about any of the technologies that we are discussing today. But we have already seen results. For example, Bangalore Airport pretty much uses almost all the technologies that we have discussed on the platform today. And it would not have been possible if there was resistance shown by the leadership or on-ground level. But it didn't happen because India today does not have time for slow growth. There is no gradual incremental changes that we have to be witnessing. The change is already happening, it's happened, and it's for us to fetch and run. So do not hesitate to adopt technology. Look at the end result, look at your challenges on hand, and adopt the quickest solution that you can look at, and definitely evaluate the end result. So that's my message to the audience.
Thank you. Vaibhav sir, as person who's actively involved in public policy and government, of course, is the largest influencer on all this. I guess what probably government policy or government enabling mechanisms can you give us some insights into that would help this audience here that we can take as a takeaway?
See, more the public-private partnership happens, the easier the adaptation of technology that will happen. Conventionally, it's not only about India. I'm sure somebody like Martin can also help us share his experiences. Globally, in most of the countries, governments will have own challenges of adopting and experimenting new technology, new methods, new materials, everything. But unfortunately, government in last few years in India, particularly into the infrastructure space, or probably the biggest public-private successful model globally is India's highway sector. So therefore, more the adaptation of public-private partnership happens in most of the infrastructure projects. So whether it is at the stage of construction, whether it is at the stage of management, whether it is stage of maintenance, I'm sure adaptation of technologies will happen. So for example, there is a company, I will not name the company, they started as a fund, started taking highway assets, and they have developed a unique capability and adaptation of new technologies for the highway maintenance. And today, they are saving money through maintenance, not through the other ways of, so their biggest revenue earner is the money saved in the maintenance. So whether it is, micro things used for the maintenance and things. So I think the adaptation of technologies will improve. And because these assets will be managed by the private sector, they will have a bit flexibility on using technologies, methodologies that will maintain the quality or rather improve the quality and shall maintain and shall reduce the cost for them, because that's how they will earn their money. So I think more the government adopts public-private partnership, easier or faster will be the adaptation of technology.
Thank you. Kiran sir, you are a technology player.
Yes.
And I would say young technology company.
Lot of idea.
Good compliment to have on stage. So, and there are a bunch of young startups here. Yeah. What's the one advice you can give them when they approach infrastructure players? Trying to develop a business.
Okay. So, I'll answer the first one and the second one, both very short, 2 sentences. Martin's example of the LATAM games. When you are using technology, new technology, do not treat the spend as a cost, treat it as an investment, you will get the ROI on it. Coming back to your second question, that's one line. Coming back to your second question on startups and what advice I can give you. I know this has been beaten to death, but be cautious. What you think is a solution is not necessarily a solution. Trust me, what we had 4 years ago and what we are today, at least about 50-60% different, because we kept listening. We were lucky we had some very nice clients, but we kept listening to what the industry was telling us. And you will have to zig and zag. It's not a straight line. There's a lot of sweat. There's a lot of rolling up of sleeves and doing hard work, as we call it. But the one that I would repeat and I would say again is the first one, which is your existing solution is not necessarily the solution. It could be simple things like, you may have a great product, but the framework, whether it's a private or a public document or a contract or a tender, may just not cater to it. Yeah. And you're going to have to figure out, it's not easy, but you're going to have to figure out how to weave yourself into it to get that exponential growth that will follow.
Fair enough. Kasturi sir, Bentley is a little bit of a granddaddy in the infrastructure space and well entrenched and well known in the infrastructure space. What's the one advice you can give startups who are trying to enter the infrastructure space from a technology perspective?
From the, I think I mean, there are many, like Sir kind of really explained well, especially from the maintenance point of view, there are a lot of opportunities, especially for the startups to work on. That's one aspect. There are many. I'm just really trying to think in terms of from the startups point of view. The many things can be done from the construction point of time to look at automating things, and that's where I think there's many areas where they can probably chance for startups to work on that. Actually, I would say that basically. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, sir. I'm going to open it up to our audience. 3 questions. So, 2 questions, okay? Okay, restricted to 2 questions. Sorry? I know, sorry. So, I was going to say either we had a very, very clear panel discussion that nobody has any questions, or they're all waiting for their caffeine breaks. So.
So I have a question for Geetha ma'am and Kiran. The MEP clashes, what has been your experience after using the clash detection and resolving them? Do you still see clashes reaching the construction site, or it is a problem solved now?
I'll take that question. I'm an architect myself, and I was heading the master planning and design verticals at Bangalore Airport. I also had a stint at Adani Airports couple of years. I was doing the similar portfolio for Adani Airports, managing the portfolio for 7 airports. So, like I said before, with respect to the clash detection, BIM has been one of the tools that has proven efficiency. I wouldn't say it is 0% clashes when we reach construction, because all the projects or such large scale and highly complex projects are always dynamic. There are changes coming from various stakeholders for authorities, for example, which is very last minute. So the changes happen, hence clashes do occur, but we have already sorted out 80% of the discipline clashes. When I say clash analysis, it's more the clashes that we foresee from the discipline's perspective. But of course, when there is a change that has happened to the project requirement or a user requirement, those changes do reflect when we are taking the course during construction. But nevertheless, BIM has definitely proven to be a very efficient tool.
Sure. Thank you.
So I'd echo what she's saying. At least when we talk with clients, we're talking about intentional changes versus unintentional changes, or clashes coming up on account of intentional, and therefore you need to change something, or before constructing it you need to change it, and then obviously the unintentional ones where there's just been, I'll call it an error. It's too broad a word, but you know what I mean. Sure. Very, very useful. The earlier you catch it, that much more easier, faster, better, less cost, fix it easier even if it's after the fact. But just that the way the technology, whether it's a BIM model and the identification of the clash or the discrepancy, whatever you want to call it, the faster you catch it, the faster you'll fix it. Very, very important. But a simple thing, does it get resolved? Yeah, of course it gets resolved, because it's been bubbled up, right? And if for some reason it cannot be constructed, they will redesign it again. It gets resolved. There are enough smart people who look at the I'll call it the problem. It may just be a redesign, it may not be a problem. But there are enough smart people who will look at it, who will solve it. It gets resolved. It gets documented, it gets resolved. Our own platform has a listing of all of the exceptions. So there is enough eyes on it.
Okay, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to share that we've developed a software where we are able to automatically now resolve the MEP clashes. We are beta testing it. We're getting 90% success. Just wanted to share.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Last question. Okay, back there.
Hi. So, hi, this is Sriram here. My question is particularly for Mr. Vaibhav. So, given that during the...
Question is for whom, Sriram?
Mr. Vaibhav?
Vaibhav, okay.
Yeah. So given that during the early stages of tech development, the cost is going to be quite higher, and also the fact that government can give scale that no one else can imagine, how do we go about cracking working with the government? Because government largely depends on L1 procurement.
That's the biggest essence of business. How to crack the government. But I think, as I said, government in last 10, 15 years, credit to the government and the authorities and the officers sitting there, they have been quite open in now doing the pilots. And I think that's the route that technology companies should go for. Because doing a POC or a pilot helps in kind of establishing the facts with a very substantial data that you generate through a pilot. Because otherwise, I'll tell you, I was sitting on the other side of a table, and every day I used to get 3 presentations from 3 technology companies saying that we will do this, we will do that, we will do that. And the one question which I used to ask everybody, from where you will get the data? And they would say, okay, you know, the supervisor will feed this into the system and we will give you analysis. I said, boss, that's the problem. That's where the problem starts. Supervisor will fill whatever he likes. I'm not doubting his intentions, but that's where. So I think the better way to propose the technology adoption is through pilots and POC, and that's where you can substantially justify, validate your claims in a real environment with the authorities. And better to start with the smaller agencies, smaller, we should look at organic development of technology rather than going for a large-scale project and a, large-scale adaptation in large-scale projects. I think that is the approach that works. It has worked for so many companies, and I'm sure it will work for, thousands more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for taking the time. Lot of outcomes, lot of learnings. How to work with the government, POCs to validate the technology. We heard about a lot of the technologies, models. One thing that I will say is, I always tell startups, think of vitamin M, who pays and who gains. As long as you have those 2 equations figured out, a lot of the questions get answered a little more easier. And it's not about the technology, it's about the problem and, of course, customers getting value out of it. With that, thank you all for taking the time. And for the audience, the panelists are available, I'm assuming, for coffee break or at lunchtime. So do interact with them. You'll gain a lot of insights and inputs. And thank you for being a patient audience. Thank you.